Zdravo, eto, subota je, vikend je, na vikendu smo u Rovinju. Ja sam Ivan Brezak-Brkan, osnivač Netokracije i Neuralab i Netokracija vam donose live stream sa Weekend Media Festivala. U ovom slučaju backstage intervju sa jednim od predavača, Brianom iz Digidaya. Njemu ću da sam predstavi detaljnije, a nadam se da ste postavili pitanja putem hashtaga AskBrian, tako da mogu ga pitati sve detalje koje vas zanimaju. Brian, welcome to Croatia, welcome to Weekend Media Festival, welcome to our little backstage area.
Thank you. This is actually in front of the stage, though.
Don't tell people that. We're
Sorry.
trying to keep it a secret. Yeah, but just if you could do a short intro of what you do at Digiday and about the publication for those of our audience that are not familiar with it.
I can't imagine they wouldn't be. So yeah, I'm the president and the editor-in-chief of Digiday. We are a media company. We do both events and we have a publication, and we also have basically an agency. And we're focused on the modernization of media and marketing. So our whole concept is that every single publisher, brand, agency is at point A and they got to get to point B. And point B keeps moving. So if you figure out desktop, you got to figure out mobile. If you figure out display ads, you got to figure out native. Figure out text content. You got to figure out video.
That's
I could go on.
I
could go on. Well, it's good for us because there's a lot to cover. And you know, wherever there's confusion, there's opportunity. And I think what's going on right now in the media world is there's a lot of confusion because you hear a lot of buzzwords, you hear about a lot of new platforms, and so it provides us with a great opportunity, both in the publication and at events, to bring some kind of clarity to it, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Or maybe our business model is to create more confusion.
That's a good idea.
In order to
we should do more
maybe
of that.
solve the confusion.
Okay, so to create more confusion, let's start with something terrifying, the adpocalypse, right?
Yes.
Everyone's blocking ads.
Everyone is
out of
blocking
business.
ads.
Crap, why are these people here? They're going to be out of jobs. What, in short, is the adpocalypse currently in the US market? And what's your take on it?
So ad blocking is an interesting one because usually you I know us from the US, you know, we only think about the United States. And so we always think everything sort of starts in the United States and moves, you know, over to Europe. But in fact, like this was something
Which is to a point true.
Which is often the case, but this is one of those exceptions because ad blocking, I remember we do events in Europe and we did an event last year, it was in Amsterdam, and I was talking with Scandinavian publishers who are seeing 50% block rates and German publishers who were seeing 40% block rates. And it was clear to us that that was going to come to the United States somehow. Like, I don't think Europeans are that different from Americans in hating advertising. That's the one thing we can all sort of bond over. So, you know, we started writing a lot about this, and Apple recently came out with a new operating system that allowed for what they call content blocking. And it's really ad blocking because we don't...
LOL.
Ads are the only kind of content people want to block. So, you know, basically people are now going to be able to block ads on Safari. Now, it's just Safari. It's not within apps yet. But, you know, why Apple's doing this? I don't know. If you're a conspiracy theorist, it's because they don't have an advertising business, and Google does have a very large advertising business, so they want to hurt Google.
Well, Apple can always buy Crystal, right? And just like
they can. Well, that's the other thing is like the ad blockers are weird too because they are going out to publishers and saying, "Hey, we can whitelist your ads for a fee," which is, you know, it's a very good business model, really. You know,
they're more. I honestly, like, a lot of people say that media companies are evil, like advertising agencies are evil, but like this thing is, it's pretty.
Yeah, no, evil is evenly distributed. I think it's fair to say.
Okay. So with the adpocalypse, we were actually talking about the product experience, the experience of reading content, viewing content. Well, a lot of publishers in Croatia, Serbia, still either don't have the manpower or don't have the focus to think about how to develop a great experience for their readership and focus mostly on selling ads, getting a lot of content out, a lot of content gets a lot of page views, and that's it. From that standpoint, what do you think a publisher from this part of the world should look upon to create a better user experience, like the one you mentioned that the Washington Post is creating with apps, as I remember from your podcast, an app that opens the first article right away, right? It doesn't have a homepage.
Right, yeah. I mean, I do know a little bit because I can't read Croatian, but I do go to B92. My wife is Serbian, so I like to keep tabs on things to discuss with her. Even though she's like, I don't care. But I'm interested. So yeah, I mean, I think what we're seeing is kind of like a tragedy of the commons in that because ad rates have gone down so much, publishers have just been putting more and more ads on their pages, getting more and more intrusive. And I think ad blocking is basically, it's a symptom, right? It's not, the real problem is the fact that media has been sort of abusive to the users, and a lot of users are reacting against that. So I think that ultimately publishers are going to have to provide a better experience. I'm American, so we have to be, very strong believers in the free market. And, the market is sort of speaking when people are paying money to block ads. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's a message to publishers that if they don't clean up their pages, and it's not just the number of ads, it's the number of ad calls, it's the amount of JavaScript. It's making publisher pages almost unusable on mobile. I know when I travel, I'm like, the data charges I get are like astronomical, and a lot of it is from it bothers me that publisher pages are doing this, that I have to pay for all of this horrible ad tech stuff.
But you said clean up pages, which is fine, like less ads, better optimized ads, right? But do you think that'll solve a problem? Just because, as you said, users, a lot of them are just like mad at the publishing industry, the media industry for having obtrusive ads. But for example, the founder of the Deck Network, Jim Cottle, noted that even like networks like the Deck, which is optimized, it's opt-in, it's the best possible ad experience.
It's the purest.
Sorry?
It's the purest,
but
thing.
Even he says that they are paying for the sins of others.
Right.
Are we just going to go, is there a middle ground, right? Is there a good ad experience?
I hope so. I mean, I don't know. I mean, look, ultimately, the contract of publishing where people don't pay for it is that they're paying with their attention. It's the sort of old adage that, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. And that's true in media. And I think people do understand the bargain that they're getting free content and that they're going to pay with their attention. But there's a limit. I mean, there's a limit and people are there's a large group of people who think that they are paying too high of a price with their attention. And so, ultimately, there has to be some middle ground. There has to be, because content needs to be supported. I don't think it's a good thing if everyone adopts subscription models. I think they can work for certain publishers, but I think
niche B2B.
Niche and B2B and super high end. But I mean, if you look at in the United States, the New York Times has probably the most successful digital subscription program, and their opt-in rates are about 2 to 3%. So I mean,
not very high.
No, that's not very high. So
also they're a brand. It's not like they're just big. They're respected.
So their advertising is absolutely part of the future of having freely available content. I think a lot of times, that's sort of missed. There is a very big societal value to content being freely available. So we can't hate advertising too much, because it does actually play a role in civil society. It might just seem like it plays a role in annoying us, but it does play a positive role.
You mentioned native advertising, right? And with, let's just like think that you said that you hope that there would be a middle ground as far as an ad experience goes. With, let's say that there is a middle ground where there's an ad experience that users will like. What happens to the media buying agencies who are all about more ads, more money, right? And really might not, especially in Croatia against Serbia, don't understand native, for example, as an alternative, do not have the resources to, for example, just like see what publishers are producing to like help introduce it to their clients. Where is the role of media buying agencies in the future? Are they the enemy in this fight against ads, or are they an ally that needs to also change in order to make the whole experience better?
Well, whether they're an ally, I think, is up to the media agencies. I think right now, the media agencies are in a difficult position. You mentioned our podcast, which I recommend. That's my native advertisement for the Digiday podcast. But I had on Rashad Tabakawala, who's the chief strategist at Publicis Group. And he's saying what clients are demanding, because we're seeing giant media reviews, is more with less. And so media agencies have to get a lot more efficient. They have to get a lot smaller, and they have to get a lot more strategic. Right now, media agencies are still incredibly inefficient. There's still a ton of people who are just buying undifferentiated ad impressions, and they're basically spreadsheet jockeys, and they're going to be replaced by computers. And like if you look at where media agencies are going, they're going to be shrinking because computers are going to replace a lot of the grunt work. Now, where they can play a role is actually having a lot of strategic discussions with publishers in order to create ads that maybe consumers don't like, but that they will accept as part of the bargain of having free content. I mean, a site that I think does ads extremely well for both sides, because you have to serve, media is a weird business because you have two masters. You've got your audience and you have your customers. And it's a lie to say that their interests are aligned. A lot of times you have to choose one side over the other. And in that way, it's a very unique business, So if you operate a restaurant, I mean, you're kind of screwed if you operate a restaurant. They all go out of business anyway. But if you operate a restaurant, it's pretty clear. You got to get people in the door. You charge them for meals. You got to get more. You got to turn tables and stuff like this. Whereas if you're a media company, you've got to balance your audience with your customers, and they're more often than not different people. If you have a pure subscription model, they're the same people, but you're going to be very small if you just rely on that. So I think Quartz is a publication that does it really well. They're a business publication that Atlantic Media runs. No ad tech, no tracking, they make all the ads themselves. The ads are large, so I think that they're large and they actually look nice. But so are ads in magazines. I think that's where internet publishing has always sort of gotten it wrong. Is you pick up a magazine and the ads are part of the experience. You go online and the ads are just intrusion.
Very good point. What about platforms? Again, you mentioned Facebook, and Facebook has been courting publishers, right? Yep. Working with the likes of the New York Times, Axel Springer, a lot of them. You said that for Digiday specifically, Facebook was a great platform to gain influence, which makes sense. Do you think that in the long term, that Facebook is a good option for most publishers, especially if we look at, for example, them launching verified accounts for journalists, right? Which, in theory, can let them identify the influencers among journalists and provide a platform for them to publish without a media brand in between the audience and the journalists. Do you think that could pose a challenge to publishers in the future if they align themselves with Facebook's platform?
I mean, I think it could. I mean, everything could. I remember covering Google early on, and basically every meeting I had with a technology company or an agency or something, I'd be like, well, what if Google decided to do this? And at one point, some guy said to me, he's like, look, Google's not the competition. Google is the environment. And that's the situation now with Facebook too. I mean, Facebook is trying to do so many things. I mean, they're launching balloons to bring the internet to Africa. There's so many different constituencies within Facebook that I think sometimes those of us on the journalism side are being a little egotistical to think that there's some like Mark Zuckerberg is like, sitting there like thinking, how can I disintermediate publishers? I mean, I don't think he probably cares. Like, Facebook will do what's good for Facebook, and that's why I think for publishers it's hard because there's no right answer, because I think every media company needs to have their own like sort of portfolio strategy. So if you think about investing, like my strategy might be different from yours because I'm clearly much older than you, and so I'm going to be retired soon, so I might need to be more conservative. You might be a little bit more risk taking, and I think for publishers it's the same way. They need to have a different portfolios. So for some publishers, they can go really hard into publish it all on platforms. I don't care. For other publishers that like say the Wall Street Journal versus the Washington Post. Washington Post is publishing all of its articles, 1,200 articles a day on Facebook. Washington Post is making a calculated bet. The Wall Street Journal, because they have a subscription model, is saying no way. We need to have first-party data. It's too important. And so I just think that, depending on your model, it can be really beneficial. But no matter what, everyone has to have a platform strategy.
We mentioned like that media buying agencies would probably get smaller. Publishers would be, having challenges with ads that users don't like. If we look at Croatia, Serbia, Slovenia, the Balkans as one market, clearly publishers still want normal ads to be published. The more the merrier, more money. Media buying agencies as well. In an environment like that, who do you think will, let's not say break first, but who is going to be the agent of change? Is it going to be the smaller niche publishers that introduce clients to, for example, native and the need to have a better experience? Is going to be the agencies that some of them see, we need to differentiate? From your experience, what do you think that, what might happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think publishers can be the agent of change. I would never look to agencies to be the people who are pushing change. I mean, I remember I spoke at an event in Belgrade like 4 years ago, and someone was like, what would be your recommendation for, regional sort of publishers? And I made the point that like the markets are incredibly small, and that you should probably all sort of at least get back together when it comes to media, which wasn't met with great reaction. But I mean, that's a big challenge. When you have these very small markets, it's the inefficiencies of media buying, like in the United States, where because it's orders of magnitude bigger, there's 300 million people, like, when you magnify that in a smaller country, like they get just like even bigger. So efficiency is going to be a big pressure here. And I think the only way to sort of escape that is by having, again, native advertising. I really think these custom programs, because I think all the display advertising in these markets is going to be done by computers. Because it's too inefficient. I mean, and if you look within European markets, like I would look to a market like the Netherlands. Okay, advanced market, very small. Not a lot of people speak Dutch, and they've gone really heavily into programmatic just for that reason, because it is just too. It's just too expensive to transact media when the buys are so small in those kind of markets. Germany can get away with stuff because Germany is so big. So and ultimately, size ends up, mattering in a lot of this.
Do you think that native can help like local publishers in those kinds of markets, for example, the Netherlands or Croatia, like stand out, or is programmatic going to influence that as well?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think everyone's going to have to figure out, it's sort of like platforms. Everyone's going to have to figure out their sort of native strategy and what that looks like, whether you're local, national, international, and it's going to depend. And I don't know if everyone's going to have to figure out their like programmatic strategy. For us, we don't do any sort of programmatic buying because it's just not worth it. The rates are too small. And I still find there are tags on our site, which is kind of crazy. Yeah, I think everyone's just going to have to figure out what makes sense for their market. I think one of the big problems of local has always been education. I mean, a lot of local advertisers are not the most sophisticated advertiser. They're spending their time operating their business, not thinking about like native advertising, advertorials and stuff like that.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Brian, for
Cool, thank you.
your time. Hvala vam na gledanju live streama. Uživajte dalje u programu vikenda i gledajte sljedeći intervju. Imat ćemo ih tijekom dana. Pozdrav i od Neuralaba i od Netokracije. Bog, bog.